The cars get down the track from the tune. They don't, not from some combination of like the best parts. They might have a 300 horsepower engine and they're still faster than your 500 horsepower engine. It's not the engine builder. All right, we're back. What is it you're going to talk about now?
Well, so I see this ATI super damper up here. Do you have any preferences on harmonic dampers? When you're going aftermarket, I got to imagine the resonant frequency of the crankshaft or the rotating assembly is not the same as stock.
Well, that's a good question. I don't have any preference at all for dampers. Stock damper is the same style, little rubber elastomer as an ATI. ATI is just SFI certified, so if you require that, you need that. There's other brands that, Jegs, Pioneer is the aftermarket replacement for a stock. I have no preference. I think those really aren't needed. You don't need to get an expensive one, especially the ATI. They're good quality, the ATIs, but they're, just for a rebuild and for street strip, they're just not needed. On my own car, I've run for ages. I mean, most of the time people put just what they can get away with on their own car. So that's why I go back to my own car. I've run stock damper. How can you tell the difference? And I put good stuff on it. It's like, it's all the same. The cars get down the track from the tune. They don't, not from some combination of like the best parts. It's not like the best engine builder either, or the best heads cam people. They get down the track because they got the right gear and torque converter combo, and they might have a 300 horsepower engine and they're still faster than your 500 horsepower engine. It's not the engine builder.
Now let's talk about crankshafts. You talked about piston balance and measuring the rods and everything like that. So what's the next step? Was this crankshaft, say you had a new combo, you would have to take this to the machine shop and they're going to set it up with bob weights. I know you've done a video on this before, but just that's not something the average person can do, even if they measured everything, right?
To answer that in the short version, you need to take it to a specialist for the balance and take your rods, bearings, and pistons and rings, take the whole rotating assembly to him. It's worth paying him and all his expertise to do the measuring. But I like to write all the numbers down and save them time and do it myself. And yeah, I had a lab quality scale a while back, but now I don't. I just have a budget scale that works as good as anything.
Well, and you said you only need to get to 1 gram precision, right?
Yeah. And you got to have your own. I mean, I have my own kind of validation technique, so I'll have 2 of them and see if they're weighing the same, and that gives me a validation that this is working. And that's my calibration. Is it weighing the same as this one? It's something that the home hobbyist or the hot rodder doesn't need to do. Send the whole pile to the balance shop. They'll do a good job.
All right, so while we got the block here, one of the things I've wondered, and I've been on the Impala forum for a long time, you have as well, it seemed like a lot of guys in the early days were doing cam swaps, and next thing you know, a few months later, they've spun a bearing, and now they've got to take the engine out.
Yeah.
And it never did make any sense to me. Why is it that in replacing and installing a camshaft produces engine failure? Is that they're spinning the motors to the moon? Is that maybe there was a bunch of dirt in there? Did they do it in a dust storm in a carport? Like what happened with that? Any thoughts?
Because it happened to me when I did a cam swap. Did I do heads and cam? Took it to the dyno and it was running on the dyno. Finished running on the dyno, then it wouldn't start. That's because it was tight. So it spun the bearings and got tight. So I think it is as simple as the rods can't deal with it. It's not dirt. That could be in some cases. But I think in most cases, the RPMs are up now. It's heads cam, right? So they got 6,000 RPM, 6,200 RPM, because stock is 5,600 shift point. 6,200 RPM, 6,200 RPM, because stock is 5,600 shift point. 6,200 RPM, 6,200 RPM, because stock is 5,600 shift point. 6,200 RPM, 6,200 RPM, because stock is 5,600 shift point. And those stock rods may have become egg-shaped already before the cam. But so anyway, they're just that's all. I think it really is just the rods can't deal with it.
Because the centrifugal force between 5,600 and 6,200 is significantly more.
Yeah. This base core here is 0.9. This is so much wider because I mean, of course, this is a billet. But
how do you tell? Just by looking at that surface quality next to the oil pump here?
Yes. Yeah, just looking at this here quality.
And this other one is a cast can? You just lay them right beside each other?
Yep. Yep.
So the question I have is, with small block Chevy is a very compact engine, and the cam tunnel is very close to the crankshaft. And so when you go to a stroker crankshaft, there are several cylinders that the rods, if you don't pick the right rods and rod bolts, they will hit the camshaft. And so the idea is that you make a smaller base circle camshaft where the base circle is the part that has any of the lobe on it, right? So this area here is small. The cam bearings are not different, but just the base of where the rocker or the lifter rides is going to be smaller to avoid those clearance issues, right?
In part, that also helps, and then you can get lift too, because this won't even go in if you wanted to do a normal base circle cam with more lobe lift.
Right, so that lobe is constrained to the total diameter of the bearing, right?
Yeah.
So at a certain point, you've got to actually reduce the base circle to get the lift you want.
Yeah.
So if you do that, now the lifters, the roller lifters, are now riding lower in the lifter bores than they used to be.
Yep.
So at what point do you have to look at getting longer lifters so that they're still engaging the dog bones and they don't start to spin?
I never worry about it because they do go lower. Like say stock, they'll be like flush.
Okay.
And then when it's a smaller base circle, they'll go a little lower like that. And I never worry about it. It's not like they're going to go under this. They never, the base circle is never that low because now you've got no lift in your, I don't know, it's like they've never gone that low. They're usually like lowest I've seen. You have to eyeball it, but that's about where it'll go.
So that looks like about halfway into the dog bone?
Yeah.
Is that right? So what's the thickness of one of those dog bones?
Well, let's see.
So you've never had a motor come back with a lifter that's gotten too low and turned sideways?
Right. Nope. Never. 0.27, let's call it.
So a little over a quarter of an inch.
Yep. What some have done they'll have somebody mill the surface of these here, and if you have access to that, well then everything sits lower and the lifter will be out a little further.
Okay, and you're only cutting 200 thousandths off at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a lot of work to do that.
Sure, I was going to say, and you'd have to re-chamfer those, right?
Yeah, but then also, you could just say, okay, I got a small base circle cam. I don't want my lifter to go too far down. I'm worried about that. Then you get the link bar. If you get the link bar, once or twice I've seen it where the owner doesn't even know that it's not the extra long link bar that they got. The 0.3 taller, they've got the normal. And so now their lifters don't even touch the cam.
So the link bar is actually bottoming out on this surface, and the roller is not even riding the base of the cam.
Yep, it'll just bottom out on that, and there'll be a gap.
So if you use the link bar lifters, do you check clearance against that base, that end?
If you just get the taller ones, and then the bars, you look to make sure they're not touching. It's an obvious gap on the taller ones.
Okay, it's an obvious gap.
Obvious, but I have some shorter ones. I had my first stroker that someone else built for me. To be able to use normal tall, not the extra 0.3, they took the mill to this, and kind of at an angle. You'll see that in some of these type of blocks. That allows you to use any size lifter. I think those lifters are in, not this drawer, in this drawer. Okay. I've had these for ages. Back when my first engine, it was a solid roller. I've had them refurbished. I call them short. They're short. The normal length. These are just, and I have no use for them. But one day I might get around to saying, "Hey, these are for sale." So the right ones are 0.3 taller, and they'll give clearance. So these are. I don't have a set to show you what would be the right length. I have just 2 sets of short ones for sale, brand new. Another set right here.
So do those small block Chevy lifters only come in those 2 sizes? There are not custom heights, either short or tall?
That's all if it's small block Chevy, I've only seen the 0.3 taller. And it's a common one people are using now. Just make sure when you do the ordering, if you do your application, and I want those, so many times they're not 0.3 taller. They just double check. You gotta always double check.
So a question for you, when they're making these blocks and machining them, I notice that sometimes the chamfers on the lifter bores are not uniform. Like it looks like this one over here is a lot less of a chamfer than say some of these here.
Yeah.
Does that make any difference as long as there is a chamfer present?
My answer to that is I've never noticed. I don't.
It almost looks like these are done manually because there's just a lot of variation.
Well, I can't see any use for it except for it helps the people for the installation. I don't see any use for that chamfer. It just kind of helps you get it lined up in there so you can put it in. Because if I don't have it correct, I'm not getting it in. But if I finally find the right spot, I don't know. Let's see if it's easier. Maybe it was a little quicker, but I'm getting better at it. See, now I couldn't get this one in. I don't know what that chamfer's there for.
So let me ask another question on that lifter. So when we're looking real close at that lifter, there's a pretty clear witness mark right there on that side. As long as, you know, if you're going to reuse your lifters, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of lifter business going on right now in the engine building community. You know,
so you might want to reuse your lifter.
Yeah. Right. So if you're looking at that and there's pretty clearly there was a polishing mark on that side, does it matter which side they go in on?
No.
Is there any benefits of flipping them around to a less polished side as you put them in?
Not that I know of.
Now these are factory lifters you have here?
Yep.
Do you ever take the retainer clips out to look at the inside mechanism, or do they either work or they don't?
No, I never.
Is there any inspection you do on the top of the lifter?
No, just for cleanliness. Proven used lifters are sometimes better than unproven, aftermarket, especially like a 200. Well, because they're unproven.
Oh.
That's the only reason. Like a $200 set of probably the same quality, but who knows? All right, QC that you can do yourself. Brand new lifter that you get, a $200 set. You get them from Summit or anywhere, or you're brand new. I'm talking brand new. You still need to double check them. Don't just take them out of the box. Do the thumb roll to make sure they roll smoothly with pressure. Because if they don't, you'll feel a grit. And you can do a gorilla thumb on it. And it's why I don't know. It's worth buying high quality and QC'd and tested. You can never go wrong with like the Johnsons. Duke. These are his that he bought for his engine number 120, and Johnson makes their OEM for numerous companies, and these are the 2110R or the 2110R race. So preload is very precise on these.
So what's that on an LT1 rocker stud? Is that half a turn?
It is about it's before a half a turn. So like say it's around like 5 o'clock, or you'll have to measure depending on your threads per inch. And I mean, what are we looking at? Something much fancier? It's just higher quality and QC'd quite well.
Have you ever had one of these bad out of the box?
No, but I've had hardly any of these. It's very rare because these are expensive. See, always look around. The worst lobes are always 7. So always start there first. I was on the wrong end.
So these are lobe 3 and 4 in front of the oil pump gear.
Yeah, it's lobe 7 and 8. So this is 8.
Correct.
And this is 7. and this is a aggressive cam. I don't think it has very much miles on it at all. Okay, so Joel wanted to talk about cam gears, or what they're made out of here.
Yeah, and so the rear one's a billet cam, the front one is not.
And it has to be an iron gear, or another one is, it's called like an Everwear, which is, I have no idea what the metallurgy is on it. This is not an Everwear, but that also will work. It needs to be compatible with the iron distributor gear, oil pump drive gear.
I've heard the phrase melanized.
Melanized, yeah.
Is that what that similar thing is?
That's not what the Everwear is.
Okay.
That I have no idea.
Now, so say you're tearing your motor apart for the first time, you're looking at these gears, what do you see? You got a calibrated eyeball?
The gear on the oil pump drive,
Yes.
I don't look at the cam unless I'm putting it back in. This is a used, or a takeout as I call it, and it's the typical wear. That looks actually pretty typical, and I would put that right back in.
So that's only got a very small part of the tooth face has wear on it, and you're saying that's serviceable?
Yep. I would put it right back in. No need to do new. You can. These are like $50 new from GM. Isn't that funny how they look? They don't even look new. It's all kind of grayish, but it works its way into looking like, well, not like that, but still.
And they have looks like a roll pin retainer?
Yeah. Depending on if you get an AC Delco, it'll come in a box with another pin, or you just reuse that roll pin. Pop it out, reuse it.
And what kind of bearings in that holder?
None. It's no bearing at all. It's just this shaft. It's all varnished up, right? But this is the only shaft I have. One thing that you'll get if you have your old one. If you want to redo it, you just pop this pin out with you'll figure out the technique. You got to get the right size punches. This just will slide out, clean it up as much as you can, but it's only a shaft that I don't have any spares. I get them from Nabil. It's like, I'm out of spares, Nab. Can I buy some from you?
If it spins freely, it's good to go?
Yep. And this is typically how they spin.
And that one's dry. That doesn't sound like it's got any oil in it.
Nah, squeaky. It'll loosen itself up once you put it in the engine.
Sure.
Now, this one has a crack. That, if you want, you put it right back in because there's no load on that one. This just got torqued more than 20 foot-pounds, and it cracks because the bolt gets tightened too tight. There's no force getting put on this to come out of the engine. That's just holds it there, that bolt.
So could you put a big flange washer on there and reuse it?
Yes, you definitely can. Here's a takeout. Look, there's a crack. So I won't reuse this if I need to have a core for somebody's engine. I could probably just trash that. This is one that has no crack. It's nice to have a core that's uncracked.
So it's plainly visible if there is a crack.
Yeah, it's always in that spot because it got torqued too much.
And let's zoom in on that bushing. It looks like that's just a copper bushing.
Yeah.
Okay, so nothing fancy there.
That's all that is.
Hey, you got a couple of billet ones here. Talk about those.
Yeah, it's Tick Performance. They're the only ones that make these. And they fit a lot tighter. The tolerance of getting it into the block is a tight fit. And the one thing that nice is they have a pressurized oil feed there to help with the shaft, which I don't have a copy of, but it helps lube and cool that shaft. So you can get one of these when you buy it for $150 from Tick. This is all you get. So you got to put together the rest of it. So take your stock one, get the shaft out of it, get your new gear, put it together. Now you'll have.
So there's assembly required.
Yeah. So you have to buy a gear, $50. This for $150, and get a core. You have your core. I've seen those be stripped. And that has nothing to do with oil or the oil pump.
You're talking about the actual gear right there.
Yeah, and then the cam sprocket that has the teeth here. I've seen those stripped.
Wow.
Now, why would that happen? Probably a seized up water pump or something like that. I can't see any other reason that would happen.
Now, when you pull those out, do you put new bearings if the customer is still going to retain a mechanical water pump?
Yes. There's nowhere to get brand new shafts or cores, and this actually does have one of those. It's a recent find for me, and an actual customer pointed me out. He wrote to me in an email and said, "These are the part numbers." And it's like, I had no idea that they were available. So these are available. The Swedish ones, even though they're made in Argentina or wherever, yeah. And a Timken one. Here's a Timken one. I bought a few.
It looks like 6201JEM.
Yep, or if you want Timken.
FAFNIR 44Z802.
Yep. And
where are you sourcing them from?
Darn, I forgot actually. I have no idea, but it's no place that's special. These are like I don't know.
Those are fully sealed.
Yeah, fully sealed, and this one probably is not. This. What I'll do is, it's probably not needed because the stock ones don't come that way. I'll stuff it full of this high pressure lube here that I use for a lot of stuff. I'll stuff it full of that on this side and on the back side and whatever, and just put it in here and hammer this in. That's the only. You have to have a good core. Like say if this, you're doing a you got your stock core and you're doing a hot rod engine, you're going to use the Chloe's Extreme Duty. And you're keeping the water pump, make sure, because that Chloe's Extreme Duty comes with this. You can't reuse the stock gear, which is this.
That's the one with the 6 holes in it, right?
Yep.
It's a stock gear.
It's the pitch of the teeth are different. That may be another reason that I saw that stripped or whatever. I don't know. But the teeth pitch, I can't see the difference, but they're different. So
Okay,
you
so you
swap.
can't mix and match those gears.
Right. Now,
So how does one get those off then? Do you have to press the bearing off and then take that gear off the back with heat?
nope. I just hammer them out. They're not real tight in there. So, because this here will come off, right? I just set it in a vise and then just hammer that. It just comes up. This whole pile comes out.
Okay.
You could heat it up and then you'd have hot metal and it'll come off a little easier. Now, I got a drawer full of these here, right? Well, that's because if someone doesn't, they have a Chloe's Extreme, they don't, they delete the mechanical water pump. Well, there's no need for this. So that kind of sits here as a spare in case someone needs one, let's say. If you're doing a water pump delete, mechanical water pump, you're doing electric. Recently, I learned, I think, say if you leave it, and this is just running free in your timing cover, I think that still gives you another future leak point because it's in there flopping around. It's not even supported by the actual stock pump anymore. So now it's in there just kind of spinning in that hole. It's just another leak source. So just delete it anyway and fill the timing cover hole. I think it'll save you the water pump oil leakage kind of thing. It might show O2s are lean. And if it's showing that, then the computer's dumping fuel. And it may be accurate, but I doubt it. And so this is this core was very rusty. It depends on your core that you send to it. You could pay to have them bead blast and clean all this. Or you can clean it yourself and clearance about right there for each bore. Back to our fun tool wall. ready at hand. These are what I pop out core plugs and those little steel balls for the typical LS4005.
Can you use a piston and flip it upside down?
Yes, exactly. And 4.00 if you're going to stock. There'll be a logo or a dot, and that always means up.